When I transmigrated into the role of the villainess, the story was already approaching its finale, yet something went wrong. I found myself simultaneously thrust into two different narratives with both death scenes unfortunately scheduled for the same day. At this very moment, kidnappers were dragging Claire and me toward the cliff's edge, a sharp blade pressed against my throat. "Only one of you can live." The male lead shouted anxiously, "Let Claire go now." Claire gave me a triumphant glance. "You were just his second choice. When he was young in Julian's heart, I'll always come first." Sweat beaded on my forehead as I checked my watch in panic. Only 1 hour remained before my next scene as the villainess. "Time is running out for me," I nodded frantically through my tears. Yes, you'll always be number one, so hurry up and do it, big brother. I still have another curtain call to catch. The waves at the cliff's base, heavy with moisture, crashed wildly against the steep walls, completely drowning out my voice. The kidnapper clearly didn't take my words seriously, still shouting himself hoarse. "Agreed, I'll only release one hostage. Prepare 1 million in cash for me. As for the other one, I'll let her go once I reach a safe location. If you dare call the police, I'll kill the hostage." Seizing the opportunity, one quickly interjected, "Go ahead and kill her now if you've got the guts." Kidnapper, who asked for your opinion on how I should do things? I glanced at the sheer cliff behind me, where the churning sea below looked bottomless. "Looks to me like you don't have the nerve to kill her. Say that again if you dare." I stiffened my neck and strained toward the knife. "Edge, you wouldn't dare kill me." "Say that again if you dare, coward. You just want to do it." With a parched throat and the resolve of one facing death, I shouted it 3 times in succession. The kidnapper flew into a rage, then simmered down. Perhaps realizing I truly had guts, he slightly withdrew the sharp blade. Julian, standing not far away, sneered coldly, "Catherine, is this the person you found to scare Claire? You're truly addicted to drama, constantly vying for my attention. Let me make this clear. Claire is the most important woman in my heart. If you persist in your delusions and keep scheming against her, don't blame me for what happens next." Indeed, Claire would always be the undying star in his heart. And I was just a childhood friend who couldn't compete with the sudden newcomer. Before Claire appeared, Julian and I were practically inseparable, so intimate that everyone in our circle assumed they were destined to be together. I used to think so too, pouring my whole heart into Julian. Until his first love, Claire, showed up, having returned home in disgrace after her family went bankrupt. The first thing she thought of was Julian, that handsome, wealthy backup option. The unattainable love of his youth now stood before him, and Julian was instantly bewitched, abandoning me without a second thought. Their passion ignited like wildfire, but just as they were about to be consumed by the flames, they suddenly realized I was caught in between. Julian massaged his temples, speaking with utter exhaustion. "Catherine, what I felt for you has always been nothing more than brotherly affection. Claire is the true love of my life. When in love, they call you sweetheart. Clothes come off one by one. When love fades, they claim sibling affection, stabbing your conscience with every word." Fearing Julian might fall for me and threaten her position, Claire slandered me at every turn, framing me for harming her, then staged this kidnapping drama herself to make Julian despise me completely. The briny sea breeze brushed against her face. Claire, as if possessed by an Oscar-winning actress, had tears welling up in her eyes. "Julian, save me." I irritably glanced at my wristwatch again. It showed 7:20. If I didn't die soon, I wouldn't make it in time for the other villainous script. 2. Actually, I wasn't supposed to die twice in the same day. But poor time management led to both scripts scheduling my death scenes on the same night, creating this current predicament where I'm stretched impossibly thin. When I first transmigrated into this world, the system told me, "You're the villainess in 2 different scripts. Only by successfully dying according to both plots can you return home." I raised both hands in protest. One mission is chaotic enough. Now I have to complete 2 simultaneously. The voice in my head grew impatient. "We're short-staffed. Now, everyone has to handle at least 2 scripts. Just work harder and put in some overtime." All right, I flipped open the script and realized the stories I'd been assigned all followed the same trope: childhood friends losing to sudden love interests. And I was cast as that unfortunate childhood friend. I hesitated before speaking. "Do you really think it's reasonable for me to play 2 inseparable childhood friends simultaneously? Do I look like I can clone myself?" There's nothing unreasonable about it. Once you transmigrate, the only thing left is death. When a person dies, it's like a lamp being extinguished. Who would know you were once childhood friends with several people? It made perfect sense. So in the first minute after transmigrating into the books, when I realized the death scenes from both novels were scheduled at the same time, I clung desperately to the car door as the kidnappers tried to drag me inside, wailing pitifully, "Big brother, I really have an urgent matter of life and death." I glanced at my watch. "How about you wait here for me? I'll go make a quick appearance in another scene first, then come back to accompany you through the kidnapping plot. What do you think? After all, your storyline here is more drawn out, far less straightforward, and time efficient than the other scene." He paid no heed to my pleas and kept shoving me toward the car. In the midst of my struggle, I played my trump card. "How about this? How much is Claire paying you? I'll double it. Just give me a few more hours before your kidnapping scene." The kidnapper stopped pushing and looked at me with anticipation. "She promised us 1 million. What's your offer?" I fished out a crumpled $1 bill from my jeans pocket. "Excuse me." Then I stuffed the bill back, involuntarily climbed into the van, helped close the door behind me, and hysterically shouted, "If you're going to kidnap me, hurry up. What's with all the dawdling?" At the moment, the kidnappers were still bickering with Julian, trying to negotiate the ransom up from 1 million to 2 million, hoping to pocket some extra cash for themselves. He actually learned how to add his own dramatic scenes. How am I supposed to complete my death mission as the second villainess with such drawn-out plot lines? I glanced once more at the churning sea, the intermittent sound of waves crashing against the cliffs echoing in my ears. Julian was still shouting relentlessly, "Catherine, when will you ever stop? Did you think it was fun to drag us into this kidnapping game of yours? What makes you so confident that you can even compare yourself to Claire?" I took a deep breath and raised my calm eyes. Julian's sharp features only softened for a fleeting moment when he looked at Claire, his first love. "But all I want is to go home. No one can stand in the way of my journey home." I subtly took a slow step back, my lips parted as clear words reached everyone's ears. "Julian, I know you never liked me. Then from today onward, pretend you've never met me." With those words, I took advantage of the kidnapper's momentary daze to shove him away fiercely and leaped off the cliff without hesitation. My entire body instantly disappeared into the churning seawater. In my dazed state, I seemed to hear two completely different hysterical voices. "No, Catherine, don't jump, Miss Claire. Didn't we agree this was a fake kidnapping, 50-50 split on the million? Why are we actually killing someone? I don't want to go to jail." 3 waves kept slapping against my face, tossing me up and down in the pitch-black seawater. I swam frantically for miles using both arms and legs before finally dragging my soaking wet body ashore. A breeze made me shiver. Even in the scorching summer, heat-drenched clothes clinging to skin can effortlessly steal away all body warmth. I glanced at my watch again, 7:20. Had I really not wasted a single minute? Without time to think, I scanned my surroundings, tossed my waterlogged and dead phone from my pocket, then hoisted a rusty old bicycle from the corner. Gritting my teeth, I swung onto the seat and pedaled hard enough to make the chain spark. The other villainous scene location was just a few dozen miles away. Pedal the bike, chain faster. Maybe I can catch the next curtain call. I pedaled with even more vigor, the wind gradually drying my soaked clothes. Finally, the bike came to a stop in front of a high-end hotel. The opulent decor was dazzling, and the faint clinking of glasses could be heard from the private rooms. The gilded splendor stood in stark contrast to my disheveled state. Following the scripted memory, I pushed open the private room door with effort. The pouring light illuminated every inch of darkness where I stood. The lively chatter inside ceased instantly as all eyes turned toward me. Among them, Leo frowned at my appearance and snapped sharply. "Catherine, who gave you permission to come here? Today is the day Leo is hosting a welcome banquet for his first love." It's just a cliché tale of a wealthy young man falling for a resilient Cinderella from the slums, abandoning his childhood companion, who stood by him for years and facing fierce opposition from his parents. Leo's mother immediately threw in $5 million. Mimi grinned from ear to ear, pocketed the cash, and ran off while leaving behind a single remark. "Leo, it seems fate has destined us to part. To not hinder your future, I willingly withdraw from this love." Leo's burning passion was abruptly extinguished. He wandered like a living corpse for a long time before finally returning to me. "Catherine, don't worry, I will definitely marry you." I thought I had persevered through the storm to finally see the moon, that at last I'd witness the prodigal's return. It's a pity that a man's vows are only valid in the moment. Once they hit the ground, they turn into a useless puddle of spit. Yesterday, I returned to the country shattering all peace. Mimi's reason for coming back was simple. The $5 million she had was completely swindled abroad, leaving her penniless. She even had to borrow money for the plane ticket. The moment she returned, she threw herself into Leo's arms, sobbing and sniffling. "Leo, during this year abroad, I realized I still can't forget you. I think I'm completely smitten by you for life." What nonsense. The truth was she had been keeping 3 young lovers abroad, having too much fun to think of home. Had those gigolos not conspired to swindle all her money, she would never have returned. Yet Leo's long-suppressed affection suddenly grew into towering devotion. He broke ties with his parents, abandoned his childhood friend, and insisted on marrying the goddess of his heart. Today's welcome banquet was specially prepared by him for Mimi. Amidst the murmurs, Mimi's expression shifted repeatedly as she intimately linked arms with Leo, forcing a smile. "Miss Catherine, I know you like Leo. But in love, the one who isn't loved is the third party. Do you understand? The one who liked Leo was the old me. What does that have to do with me now?" Not a shred of sincerity remains in my heart, but the curtain call must still be performed. Next, following the original plot, I should splash red wine in Mimi's face and scream hysterically at Leo. "We've known each other for so many years. You promised to marry me, so why does childhood love always lose to fate? The moment she appeared, I vanished from your sight." I glanced around where the red wine. The private room was littered with empty bottles. Clearly this welcome banquet had reached its conclusion. I checked my wristwatch, still 7:20. Suddenly it dawned on me this watch had stopped working long ago after being soaked in seawater. By the time I arrived, the welcome banquet had already ended. Tearfully, I pulled out the new phone I'd just grabbed from my apartment, opened Wish, and through hot tears left a 1-star review. The boss had sworn to me with absolute certainty before I placed the order. "Dear customer, rest assured our Rolex at just 99 yuan with free shipping is absolutely genuine. Even if you soak it in water for 3 to 5 hours, the hands 1T miss a single tick. Dear customer, we source directly from Switzerland, no middlemen, no markups. That's why it's so affordable. Dear customer, better act fast. A Middle Eastern prince just ordered 10,000 pieces from us, and our Swiss warehouse number 1 is running low on stock." I was fooled into placing the order immediately. It truly didn't rotate any less. It stopped spinning right where it was. My fingers flew across the screen as I quickly left my review. "Don't be fooled, everyone. This Rolex is fake. When I jumped into the sea to kill myself just now, the moment seawater touched the hands, the dial stopped working." Tears rolled down my cheeks in large drops. A 6-digit password protected a 2-digit balance, and for no reason at all I'd lost 1990. My heart was bleeding. Perhaps my tears were too scalding. Or perhaps my tattered clothes, just dried from the wind, were too pitiful. The crowd cast sympathetic glances at me, whispering among themselves. I heard, she truly loved young Master Leo. Exactly, she donated all the breakup money. He gave her to the orphanage. Didn't he keep a single penny for herself? Look at how shabby her clothes are. TSK, much better than certain people who took 5 million and still came crawling back. Leo was momentarily stunned. You donated all the money I gave you. I wiped my tears and smiled awkwardly. Leo had proactively transferred the money to sever ties with me, considering it a clean break. On my way here, I casually donated it. The reason I donated the money was that after my death, not a single cent here could be taken back to my original world. Might as well give it to those in need. They probably found out so quickly because the orphanage director called the company to express gratitude. Mimi gritted her teeth. Miss Catherine, since you're here today, I hope to receive your blessing as well. With that, she kindly reached out to pull me up, but the moment she touched me, she suddenly stumbled backward from behind. It looked as though I had violently shoved her. Mimi fell to the ground, her eyes brimming with tears, yet still finding time to smear my name. Catherine, I know you like Leo, but his heart belongs only to me. Must you go so far as to target me like this? 6. The trace of guilt in Leo's eyes vanished instantly as he turned to help Mimi up with tender concern. He snapped his head toward me and said sharply, you're incorrigible. Just because we grew up together for over a decade doesn't mean I'm obligated to marry you. Unless you jump from here today, I'll never so much as glance your way again in this lifetime. A faint smile curled at the corners of Mimi's lips. My heart leapt with secret delight. This time the plot is correct according to the original storyline. Heartbroken and dazed, I stumbled out of the welcome banquet and shuffled onto the road like a walking corpse, only to be instantly struck and sent flying by a speeding truck, meeting my demise. Then I could successfully die and go home. The joy of returning home beckoned to me. My smirk was harder to suppress than an AK. It was getting late, and the truck that was supposed to hit me had most likely already raced out of the city, like the wind. One step late, every step late. It's all the fault of this 1990 free shipping Rolex. But the curtain call must go on. Jumping down seems like a good choice. Mimi's banquet was held in the VIP box on the top floor, high enough to even feel the biting draft whistling through the windows. After all, it's just a curtain call, no need to mind the process. Without hesitation, I walked toward the window, letting out a pained ouch as I lifted my leg to climb. Leo scoffed behind me. Catherine, I thought you really had the guts to jump. Now you're putting on a show for us. Mimi covered her mouth and sneered. Miss Catherine, I know you're waiting for Leo to stop you, but this trick is utterly boring. Heaven knows I just wanted to die and go home. After swimming several miles like mad and cycling dozens more, I was exhausted. Every bone in my body felt like it was falling apart, and even the simplest movement of raising an arm was nearly impossible. Not even an Ironman triathlon could compare to how hard I was pushing myself. My legs kept trembling uncontrollably, but I still managed to drag over a small stool. Gritting my teeth, I stepped onto it. Outside the window, countless lights sparkled like rare pearls scattered across the world. As Leo's eyes widened in sudden terror, I leaped into the air, mouthing words at him. Leo, I'm going home. The anticipated pain never came. Instead, I plunged into water, once more with a splash. Only then did I realize I had jumped from the rooftop and landed in the swimming pool 2 floors below. Water sprayed in all directions. This was my second time falling into water today. If jumping failed, drowning would be a decent alternative. I was just about to give up struggling and sink into the water when several sharp-eyed security guards quickly jumped in and dragged me ashore. I opened my bleary eyes, gritted my teeth, and said to them, thank you. Leo, who arrived shortly after, suddenly went weak in the knees and knelt straight down before me, his voice trembling. Kathleen, why are you so foolish? Do you love me this much, enough to throw your life away? I was utterly exhausted just before completely blacking out. Only one thought remained in my mind. Next time, don't push yourself so hard. For this body that rarely exercises today, as activity far exceeded the total amount of the entire past year. Every cell in my body was screaming in pain. When I woke up again, my vision was filled with blinding white. Tilting my head slightly, Leo's delighted face came into view. Kathy, you're awake. His eyes were filled with endless guilt and tenderness. You're always like this, willing to throw away your life for love. I've failed your sincere devotion. Why was he imagining things like this? Only a fool would live and die for a man. If it weren't for needing to die to leave this world, I'd definitely outlive him, striving to survive into old age just to dance on his grave and throw a barbecue party. Leo seemed to recall the past, his face showing a hint of nostalgia. For so many years, we were practically inseparable. You were always following behind me like a little tail. Everyone joked that we were a match made in heaven. Yet I was blind, unable to tell a fish's eye from a pearl. After speaking, a trace of resentment flashed across his face again. Kathy, do you know during the few hours you were unconscious in the hospital, one of Mimi's kept men from abroad chased her all the way back to the country, claiming the other 2 took all 5 million, and he got nothing, not even his allowance. Leo grew more agitated as he spoke. She was keeping 3 of them at once. I almost fell for her innocent act. While she was living it up abroad, I was drowning in misery back home, and even. He glanced at me guiltily. Even hurt you. A shiver ran down my spine. In this world, I'm the villainess holding scripts for 2 different stories. In Leo's eyes, I grew up alongside him as childhood sweethearts, practically inseparable. Yet to Julian, I'm nothing but an annoying piece of gum stuck to his shoe, bouncing around in his line of sight every single day. The system, for its own convenience, merged the 2 novels into one. Originally, after my death, these old matters would never be brought up again. But now that I'm still alive, and well, if the 2 male leads were to meet, how should I explain that I was childhood friends with both of them? I shuddered again. Leo noticed something was wrong and tucked the blanket tighter around me. Are you feeling cold? I've chosen the most expensive VIP ward in the hospital for you. As if suddenly remembering something, his face showed a trace of displeasure. Originally, there were only 2 top-tier VIP wards. Not only did some guy named Sue occupy the other one, but his secretary also arrogantly tried to book the entire floor with their financial clout. As if it's just about money. When has our family ever lacked money? I made sure you got this ward by outspending them. I heard that CEO in the VIP ward next door vomited blood and kept raving about jumping into the sea and urgent salvage operations. He has completely lost his mind. I had no interest in listening to his nonsense, my mind racing at full speed. The only solution now was to exit the stage early. That way I could avoid the potential bloodbath awaiting me in the future. Summoning my last reserves of energy, I casually made up an excuse to send Leo away. I'm hungry. Leo immediately nodded. Okay, I'll order takeout for you right away. I frowned. I don't want takeout. He had an epiphany on the spot. I'll have the chef prepare something and send it over right away. Why can't this guy understand plain language? Don't you think cooking personally would be more meaningful? He nodded repeatedly. Don't worry, I'll definitely have the chef make it personally, guaranteed. No pre-made dishes. I decisively chose to lay my cards on the table. I want to eat a meal. You cooked yourself. Leo's eyes actually welled up with glistening tears. He looked at me with warmth, reaching out to gently tap my nose. Casey, you always used to cook for me yourself. There was once when you told me you especially wanted to eat something I made. I've never been able to fulfill your wishes before, but today you can rest assured I'll prepare a full table of your favorite dishes. He was lost in tender memories, unable to extricate himself, but my heart remained as still as stagnant water. No other reason I didn't have the memories of either original host. In fact, if Leo hadn't taken the initiative to ask me irritably, what are you doing here, when I pushed open the private room door, I wouldn't have been able to tell which one was Leo in that bustling, crowded private room. Seemingly sensing a thaw in our relationship, Leo left the ward in high spirits, thoughtfully reminding me to stay in bed and not move around before he departed. I nodded impatiently, and the moment he was gone, quickly threw off the covers and got out of bed. The hospital window could only be opened a narrow crack, just wide enough to fit one of my arms through. Dying in a hospital might accidentally harm innocent doctors, so I dismissed the idea and decided to stick to my old standby, jumping into the sea. 9. The sky remained pitch black, with only the soft glow from the hospital room lights seeping through the glass. I quietly opened the door to the VIP ward. My room was at the very end, and not far away was that CEO's room. I crouched low and crept silently toward the main entrance. As I passed by the CEO's ward, I heard hysterical screams coming from inside. Impossible, how could they not find her? She's not dead. She can't be dead. Keep searching no matter how much it costs to rent more boats. I want to see her alive or dead. The voice sounded familiar, but I couldn't recall where I'd heard it before. I'd been in this world for such a short time that I couldn't possibly distinguish between so many voices. A more rational voice tried to console him. President, it's been a whole night now. We've searched the waters countless times and still found no body. Any farther, and we'll reach international waters. It's all open sea out there. Even if there were a body, the fish would devour it before anyone could find it. That hysterical scream suddenly turned into a muffled sob. It's all my fault. I never trusted her. I'm the one who killed her. It wasn't even her who hired those robbers, yet I assumed she did. We grew up together for over a decade. I know her like the back of my hand. How could she do such a thing without my love? She simply couldn't go on living that us. Why, she must have resolved to seek death. I sighed inwardly. It sounded like a tragic story. As a mere passerby, all I could do was silently pray that this CEO would manage to recover his beloved body from the open sea. Turning the doorknob, I slipped out of the VIP ward on the top floor without a sound. The moment I disappeared behind the door, I seemed to hear the CEO's heart-wrenching cry. I think I saw Cassie's silhouette, he said. She must have come back for me because she loved me too much. 10. Outside, the horizon gradually lightened to the pale hue of a fish's belly. The world bathed in a hazy blue-green glow. Following the briny scent of the sea, I finally stumbled my way to the stone bridge by the shore. The morning waves were unusually calm, with shallow ripples rolling weakly across the sea's surface. My long dormant heart began to boil with excitement. I'm finally going home. Before coming to this world, I had family and a lover. The peaceful life was shattered by a sudden car accident. A system approached me with a deal: help me complete the death missions in these small worlds, and I'll gift you an extra life to revive in your original world. How about it? For me, this was a no-lose transaction. I immediately agreed without hesitation, though the finale had some unexpected twists. I was about to use my wit to steer the derailed plot back on track. After a night's rest, the soreness throughout my body only grew more intense. With great difficulty, I lifted legs that hardly felt like my own. Clumsy as a bear, I struggled to climb over the bridge railing, just about to plunge into the churning sea below when a pair of strong hands swiftly yanked me back. Leo's voice stumbled with alarm. Casey, what are you doing? I was furious. It's obvious I've had enough of living. Trembling violently, he pulled me into a tight embrace, his fear palpable through the fabric of our clothes. Don't leave me. I know I was wrong. I promise I'll never abandon you alone again. I'll never believe Mimi's words ever again. I thought you really wanted to eat the food I made, but halfway here I suddenly remembered you'd been hungry all night, so I wanted to buy you something to eat first. I never imagined if I hadn't come back, perhaps. The words that followed stuck in his throat, choked with sobs. I finished the rest of his sentence for him. If he hadn't come back, by now I would have already opened my eyes in the real world and be eating the 4 dishes and 1 soup my mother made. The watch, soaked in seawater, remained frozen at 7:20, crystallized into eternity. Irritated, I pushed him away, searching for another way to take my final bow when an incredulous wail rose behind me. Kathy, who is he? The system had told me that as long as I exited the stage early, no one would uncover my dual identity of holding two childhood friend scripts simultaneously. But it never told me what to do if I missed my exit cue and ended up in a battlefield of love. With great difficulty, I turned my head and stared at this unfamiliar face, instinctively blurting out, "And you are Julian?" Seemed unable to withstand the consecutive blows, staggering back a step. Her eyes were bloodshot. "Kathy, don't you remember me? I'm Julian." "Oh, now I remember. This is Julian. When I met him last night, the sun had long since set, and his face was hidden in complete darkness without any light, so I didn't remember his appearance. Meeting suddenly in today's brightness, I actually failed to recognize him at first." Tears welled up faintly in Julian's eyes as he gathered his courage and took my hand. "I thought I was seeing things at the hospital, but after chasing out and searching around, it really is you." "Kathy, I was wrong. That kidnapper was someone Claire hired, and they planned to split the extorted money. I shouldn't have blamed you without knowing the truth. I was wrong." So he looked hopefully into my calm eyes. "Can you forgive me?" "I want to forgive unless the extorted money is split 3 ways between us. Why was I excluded from the money when I contributed to the effort?" Before I could even voice my grievance about the unfair division, Leo suddenly pulled me behind him and angrily declared, "Casey and I grew up together. Who do you think you are trying to take what's mine?" Julian let out a cold laugh as if he had heard some outrageous joke. "Your childhood friend," he sneered. "You're really quick to make things up. Cassie and I grew up together. We were practically inseparable every single day. How could she possibly be your childhood friend?" Their argument was giving me a splitting headache. I couldn't help but raise my hand to interrupt their quarrel. Right now the most important thing wasn't whose childhood friend I belonged to. But I must hurry to take my final bow. Time waits for no one. The flow of time in this small world mirrors that of the real world. Every extra day I linger here means another day of grief for my loved ones in reality. Yet as I raised my arm halfway, a sharp ache shot through me, making me wince with a quiet hiss. Julian nervously held my arm and asked, "What's wrong, Cassie? Are you hurt somewhere?" I answered casually, "No injuries. I was exhausted all last night, and now my whole body aches like it's falling apart." I wasn't lying. Swimming several miles and then biking dozens more was enough to make me feel completely wrecked. But every word that fell on Julian's ears made his eyes grow increasingly bloodshot and his expression more frenzied. As my last word fell, Julian suddenly threw a punch at Leo, cursing furiously. "After saving Casey last night, you actually took advantage of her vulnerability." I watched her grow up. The two male leads grappled with each other. Blow after blow landed mercilessly, holding nothing back. I wasn't dead yet. The two male leads were about to leave before me. Seeing Julian gaining the upper hand, I anxiously threw myself onto Leo and turned to shout at him. "Go ahead, kill me first, if you dare." As long as I could make my exit, the process didn't matter. If Julian had been the one at a disadvantage, I would have thrown myself onto him instead and shouted those same words at Leo. But Julian looked as if he'd been struck hard, his fierce expression instantly freezing into disbelief. He crumpled like a shrimp with its tendons pulled out, instantly hunching over as his legs gave way, and he collapsed to the ground. "Casey, you're actually protecting him. Have you forgotten we grew up together for 18 years? Leo smirked triumphantly, wiping a trace of blood from the corner of his mouth. "Of course, Casey protects me. We grew up together for 20 years. Are you daydreaming? Too much. How dare you covet my childhood friend?" I turned around and slapped Leo hard. "What are you yelling about? You can't even win a fight, you useless waste of space." 13. I flagged down a passing taxi, leaving the two behind as I returned to my apartment. In the original plot, Julian and Leo's so-called childhood friends were actually 2 different people. But to facilitate my mission, the system simply and crudely merged the 2 characters into one. Right now I'm standing in the apartment, as disheveled as a dog's tail, grass swaying in the wind. Since the only task left was the finale, the system's integration was handled in an extremely crude and straightforward manner. In the relatively spacious apartment, I stared blankly at the pile of photos before me. Half of these stacked photo albums contained pictures of Julian and me together. In every photo, I was always leaning against him with an ingratiating smile, while his expression carried a hint of distant indifference. The other half showed photos of Leo and me smiling, him frowning with obvious reluctance. The items related to the 2 childhood friends were also neatly divided into 2 boxes. I was like a cursed star, split right down the middle, with the 2 male leads reluctantly taking half each. I rubbed my throbbing head and tried calling out, "System, what if someone notices how crudely these 2 books were merged?" The system spared me a glance amidst its busy schedule. "Just hurry up and take your final bow, then no one will remember you once the male leads happily end up with their destined lovers who care whose childhood friend you were." It kindly advised me to hurry up and die, and I gladly accepted its suggestion. I then threw everything related to Julian and Leo in the apartment into the trash bins downstairs. There was quite a lot. Each of them got their own bin, nearly filling them completely. Just as I was about to climb back up to the 5th floor to jump, my conscience made me pull back my foot. The housing market is sluggish, and with prices already at a 20 discount, if I were to jump out the window, they'd probably plummet to rock bottom. At the entrance of the residential complex, Julian and Leo had already arrived by car. They were still arguing after getting out of the car. "I've never seen someone as shameless as you. Clearly Cassie is my childhood friend, yet you twisted the truth and fabricated this whole story about knowing her for 18 years. Huh, if anyone is shameless here, it's you. Everyone around us knows Cassie, and I grew up together. You're the one with delusions." They nearly came to blows again when they noticed me standing beside the trash cans. Quick as lightning, I slammed the lids shut on both trash bins. Inside were all photos of just the two of them. If seen rashly, I fear even with 10 mouths, I couldn't explain it clearly. Julian was the first to rush forward, grabbing my hand. "Kathy, come back with me. Don't stay in a place like this anymore. It's unsafe with so many people around." His words carried pointed implications. "I'm afraid some people are full of lies and covet you." Leo raised his fists again, ready to fight Julian once more. "I'm starving," I snapped impatiently. "Haven tea eaten in a day, and night might as well go dumpster diving at this point. If you've got energy to fight, use it to get me some food instead." I donated all my money, even the last dollar bill in my pocket went to the taxi fare. Now completely penniless, Leo and Julian seemed determined to outdo each other in winning my favor, scrambling to buy me meals. After they drove off in their cars, I quietly left the neighborhood without a word. The seaside is my final destination, the path I must take to return home. The sky was just beginning to lighten with almost no pedestrians on the road. I had barely stepped out of the neighborhood when at a section with broken surveillance cameras, a van pulled up beside me. Someone quickly emerged and shoved me into the vehicle. I took a closer look and hesitantly greeted them. "Hello. Nice to see you again, Mr. Kidnapper." The moving van suddenly screeched to a halt. The young man in the driver's seat turned to examine my face, then flew into a rage. "Why is it always you? I just wanted to make some extra money with 2 quick jobs. Why is this so damn difficult?" He was screaming hysterically, so I kindly handed him a bottle of mineral water from the corner and tried to comfort him. "Don't worry, I promise I'll die thoroughly this time." The kidnapper, who had been gulping down the mineral water, spat it all out in one go, and then looked at me in horror. "That's not what the employer told me when I came here. She said it was a fake kidnapping, and we'd split the ransom money from President Julian 50-50. I'm face blind and terrible with faces, but how come it's you again that I'm supposed to kidnap?" With that, he quickly pulled the handbrake and pushed open the car door. "Get the hell out. I'm not taking this job anymore. I don't want to end up in jail for such measly money." It suddenly dawned on me. It was Claire. Her family had gone bankrupt. She needed money more desperately than anyone else. After a night of chaos, she already knew I was still alive, so she kept scheming, determined to squeeze some money out of Julian. Just like last night's kidnapping, it was all about money. I clung to the car door, refusing to get out. "I'm not leaving. We agreed on a kidnapping. How can you go back on your word now?" The kidnapper looked even more distraught than I did. He was overwhelmed with grief and indignation. "What sins did I commit in my past life? The side gig as a kidnapper, none of my hostages want to live. My main business, running an online store. Last night, I got a huge negative review. That person threatened to jump into the sea just to prove my watches were low quality. My store's ranking plummeted, and now I have 0 orders. You think you can buy a real Rolex for $19.90? ISNT, that person clearly out of their mind." My grip on the car door suddenly loosened. Sheepishly, I pulled out my phone from my pocket, and under the increasingly horrified gaze of the kidnapper, opened Wish, revoked the negative review, and added a follow-up comment. "Folks, this watch works great. Just today it miraculously started ticking again. Only $19.99 with free shipping. Don't miss out on this deal." I waved my phone at him. The watch shop owner's expression was complicated. "You're making it easy for people to misunderstand, like you're spouting nonsense just for a $3 review refund." I put away my phone and changed the subject. "So, can we get this kidnapping started? I've got a curtain call to catch." The watch shop owner suddenly looked past me toward the back. "I'm afraid I'll have to become a hostage too." 15 both of us became hostages simultaneously. A young man who was somewhat handsome but had a vicious look in his eyes took us hostage and brought us to an abandoned factory in the suburbs. There I encountered Mimi, whose hands were tied behind her back. She seemed much more disheveled after just one night staring at the young man before her in terror, shaking her head desperately. "Vince, the money's all been swindled away. Tying me up won't do any good." From their conversation, I pieced together the whole story. Mimi was living it up abroad and had even taken 3 young male lovers under her wing. Vince was one of them. After the $5 million was swindled away by the other 2 pretty boys, Mimi was left penniless, and as a result, Vince didn't receive a single cent of his maintenance fee either. Furious, he chased her all the way back to the country, vowing to get his money back from Mimi. But Mimi had no money, so thanks to Mimi's introduction, I also had the honor of becoming one of the hostages, adding leverage to squeeze money out of Leo. Vince was completely unhinged, holding a gasoline can and a lighter, looking like he was ready to take us all down with him if he didn't get his money. Mimi trembled all over, her teeth chattering uncontrollably. Vince's face twisted into a snarl as he pointed at Mimi and began shouting obscenities. "I've been your damn dog for a whole year, and you can't even cough up a single cent. No matter what, I'm getting my hands on that money today." After speaking, he stared at the 3 of us hostages with a lecherous grin. "Even if I can't get the money, I can still kill him, then keep you 2 pretty girls for some fun. Not a bad deal." The watch shop owner was furious. "Why kill me and keep them? Why not kill them and keep me for some fun instead? You're being discriminatory. Don't you understand what prejudice means?" Mimi. Vince's forehead veins bulged with rage. Just as he was about to kill the watch shop owner, first police sirens sounded outside. Bursting in alongside the police were Julian and Leo. Vince raised his lighter, the tiny flame illuminating his contorted face as he roared. "Who dares come closer? I'll take these women down with me." 16. The pungent smell of gasoline filled the air as police quickly evacuated those behind them. Only Julian and Leo refused to leave, struggling to push forward. "Casey, don't be afraid. I'll definitely save you. I'll give you whatever money you want, just don't hurt Casey." But I kept staring fixedly at the lighter, its flame flickering unsteadily in the draft. The abandoned factory was already drenched in gasoline. One careless move could trigger a fire, or even an explosion. As if realizing I was the perfect hostage, Vince suddenly yanked me into his arms and started shouting, "Get me 5 million ready, I'll let her go the moment the money is transferred to my overseas account." I was being squeezed until my face turned blue, yet still managed to wink and mouth words to the watch shop owner. "Quick, take Mimi, and leave once we're out of danger. I promise to give your shop several 5-star reviews." The last sentence motivated him. Seizing the moment when Vince was distracted, the watch shop owner swiftly grabbed the weak-kneed Mimi and bolted toward the exit. Vince seemed provoked, his already twisted expression growing even more ferocious. He brandished the lighter and shouted maniacally, "Hurry up and get the money ready for me." The lighter slipped from his hand. The pale blue flame burst into a raging inferno the moment it touched the gasoline. I am a mission executor. When true death comes, you don't feel any pain. This could be considered an extra perk from the system. The raging flames swept through the air, instantly devouring the confined space in scorching fire. In the last few seconds before the explosion, I seemed to see the terror and despair on Julian and Leo's faces, their figures struggling against the police restraints as they tried to rush toward me. I tore my throat apart, screaming my final words with all my might. "Run, it's going to explode." I felt no pain, no burning heat, only the deafening roar of the blast shattering my eardrums. After a thunderous crash in my mind, everything before my eyes disintegrated in an instant. A dull sound seemed to penetrate my ears, as if through a heavy curtain of water. The patient's heartbeat has returned. My eyes snapped open abruptly, accompanied by the rhythmic beeping of medical equipment in my ears. What greeted my vision was a clock hanging on a snow-white wall. The minute hand rested quietly at the 4 position. It was 7:20 in the evening. Only then did I realize this was the exact time I had been hit by a car in the real world. The moment I was sent flying by the collision, death was instantaneous, freezing time into eternity. After transmigrating into the book, both the watch on my wrist and the time displayed on my phone remained stubbornly fixed at 7:20. That 1990 Rolex knockoff, even without seawater immersion, would forever stay frozen at 7:20, never budging an inch. I stared at the watch in front of me, its hands moving slowly. Soon it jumped to 7:21. Exactly 24 hours had passed since my car accident. I let out a long sigh as the system bid its final farewell in my ear. "Host has completed the death mission. Reward 1 real life." The doctor's voice came through with surprise when she was brought in yesterday. Her heart had already stopped. We thought she couldn't be saved, but who knew the patient had such a strong will to live after the surgery? Her heartbeat actually returned. Family members can go in to see her now. A warm hand touched my forehead. I struggled to tilt my face and saw my mother's swollen, tearful eyes as her chapped lips parted with difficulty. "Mom, I'm okay now." My mother held back her tears and nodded vigorously. A young man with an anxious expression restrained his worry and spoke softly with concern. "Kathy, are you feeling unwell anywhere?" I curled my lips into a smile. "I'm fine, nothing's wrong." In this transmigration novel world, the female supporting character shares my name. Both of us are called Catherine. But in my original world, I'm already engaged to the boy next door whom I grew up with, who says childhood sweethearts can't compete with sudden fate encounters. He and I have always stayed true to our hearts, never wavering. I flashed a sly smile, half serious and half joking. I had a dream where someone told me that as long as I completed my mission, I could be revived and see you again. The boy next door grabbed my hand and playfully tapped my nose. "So, how's your mission going?" I recalled the explosion right before I opened my eyes, the violent flames shooting skyward, tongues of fire instantly engulfing everything. With a confident smile, of course, it was executed perfectly. With my role concluded and my exit complete, Julian and Leo would surely live happily ever after with their true loves, just as written in the books. Moreover, to prevent any character inconsistencies, I disposed of everything related to them. I threw it all into the trash bin downstairs because there was simply too much stuff. Julian had a trash can all to himself, while Leo commandeered the other one. Once the garbage truck came to clear them away, no trace would remain. It should be perfect. Julian's side story 1. When Casey died, her last words were urging us to leave quickly. I knew she had always loved me desperately. Even in her final moments, she didn't forget to keep me away from danger. The ridiculous thing was, after the explosion, that shun guy beside me kept wailing and trying to charge back in. He couldn't stop screaming, "Kathy, if you die, I won't live either." We grew up together for 20 years. Nothing can ever separate us. The police struggled with all their might to restrain him. How laughable. Even at this moment, he was still spinning his dream of childhood sweethearts with Kathy. I wiped my face, unable to shed a single tear, even though I'd known Cassie for 18 years. It felt as if I was meeting her for the first time. She left behind a dazzling brilliance in my life, then vanished without a trace in an instant. If only I could have trusted her completely. If only I could have stayed by her side. So should we get engaged? Now I regret it. Remorse burned through every nerve of mine. The accident scene was cordoned off, and the police dispersed all of us. In a daze, I drove to the apartment building where Casey lived. The 5th floor window was pitch black. The girl who once lived there would never return. I was the one who lost her. The tears I had suppressed for so long finally began to fall, and the long, overwhelming emotions drowned me completely. In a daze, my peripheral vision caught a glimpse of a photograph. It had fallen beside the trash can, lying quietly on the ground. With trembling hands, I picked up the photo. On the thin sheet of photo paper, Cassie smiled brightly, her eyes sparkling, teeth white, and the corners of her eyes curved with joy. She wrapped her arms around the person beside her, leaning her whole body against them, her eyes brimming with unconcealed affection. The person beside her was Leo. Suddenly, it felt like someone had gripped my throat. I couldn't breathe. How could there be such an intimate photo of Cassie with Leo? My hands and feet trembled violently as I stood up and opened the trash can next to the photo. Inside were densely packed photo frames and diaries along with many dolls and couple items that girls love. I must be seeing things. How could all the photos be of Kathy and Leo together? From childhood to adulthood, from youth to maturity, even the couple mugs were printed with their close-up photos. My legs gave way, and I collapsed to the floor, my palm cut by the shattered glass from a photo frame. My assistant, who was following closely behind, helped me up and called out with concern. President Sue, my mind went blank as I frantically picked up a diary from the trash bin. It was filled with a young girl's innermost thoughts, the joy of growing up with Leo since childhood, then suddenly sprouting the buds of love one day, only to fall silent when an outsider appeared, the pages now brimming with nothing but bitterness. So it turns out Cassie and Leo really were childhood sweethearts. I coughed up another mouthful of blood. How could this be? He was clearly my childhood friend, so why were all the remaining traces filled with sweet memories of him and Leo? The world spun around me as my assistant anxiously supported my swaying body. President Sue, let us go back first, they urged, but I stubbornly resisted leaving. The assistant had no choice but to wave to the people behind him. Everything in this trash can, never mind, just move this entire trash can to Mr. Sue's house. What about the other trash cans? Are you stupid? Where after what's inside this one, the others are just filled with garbage. What would we want those for? I sat in the empty house, slowly piecing together every detail of Casey and Leo's past. Tears flowed and dried and flowed outside the window. Darkness gave way to dawn, only to descend into night once more. I don't know how much time I spent looking at each photo and every diary. When I closed the last page of the diary, I found my eyes could no longer shed a single tear. Where is my Kathy? She and Leo had so many years of memories, then where is the Kathy from my memories? I was clearly her childhood sweetheart, so how could there be no trace of me in any of this? I frantically searched through the villa, trying to find any trace Kathy might have left behind. After searching for what felt like ages, I found nothing. Exhausted, I slumped onto the floor when it suddenly hit me. Claire had thrown out all of Kathy's belongings when she moved into the villa. I lost the girl who loved me most. Staggering to my feet, my vision went black as I completely passed out. When I woke again, I was in the hospital. I stayed there for what seemed like forever, from the scorching summer days to the first chilly winds of early autumn, before finally being discharged in clothes that hung loosely on my frame. Kathy has been gone for so long that she hasn't even appeared in my dreams once. I heard Claire hooked up with another rich second-generation heir to maintain her extravagant lifestyle. I must have been blind back then to lose my childhood sweetheart for such a sudden newcomer. I stubbornly cut apart every photo of Kathy and Leo, keeping only Kathy's smile, then plastered the entire study wall with them. I don't believe Cassie was Leo's childhood sweetheart. She clearly grew up with me for over 20 years of my life. Cassie occupied most of that time. This must be his doing. I'm going to deal with the Shin family. To avenge his coveting of Cassie. Leo's side story. One, the first night after Cassie left this world, I went to her place. The spacious apartment was neatly tidied up, yet I wandered around the rooms like a headless fly, circling over and over. Why is there no trace of my existence here? The photos of me and Kathy, along with the couple's toys we bought together, have all disappeared. The house was so clean it seemed like no one had lived there for long. I stumbled downstairs in a daze, hearing the angry shouts of a middle-aged man. Who the hell did this? Even stole the trash cans? There were 5 now. There's only 4. How am I supposed to explain this to the supervisor? I instinctively lifted my eyelids and glanced toward the trash cans. The sight sent my blood running cold and my head ringing. Under the moonlight, a photo frame glowing with fluorescence lay in the open trash bin. It was a picture of Kathy and Julian. I lunged forward frantically, heedless of the filth, and grabbed the frame in my hands. Kathy was smiling so sweetly. I hadn't seen her laugh with such genuine joy in years. What terrified me even more was that such photo frames occupied half of the trash bin, along with men's shirts, shoes, and socks that had clearly been worn. These photographs captured Kathy's transformation from an innocent little girl to the 22-year-old woman she was today, frame by frame. It must have been Julian who photoshopped these pictures deliberately. Having harbored unrequited feelings for Kathy for years, he resorted to digital manipulation to satisfy his covetous desires. I clung to this flimsy excuse as my last salvation and ordered someone to haul the trash bin back home. And those men's clothes must have been deliberately left by Julian. Disgusting, I stomped on them several times in anger as I left. The middle-aged man was still cursing furiously. Is there no justice left? 5 trash cans have been reduced to 3. You bastards are so brazen you'd steal trash cans right in front of me. On the 3rd day after Casey's death, I received her ashes. To be precise, these weren't her complete remains. In that scorching explosion, Casey had been blown to pieces. What little ashes remained were only given to me after the police conducted DNA tests. Casey was an orphan with no family. As her substitute kin, I buried her in a suburban cemetery. But I didn't even have a single keepsake of hers. Like a madman, I cut apart her photo, with Julian burning that detestable face of his completely to ashes in the fire. Then, frantically, piece by piece, I pasted Cassie's photos to fill the entire album. This was all I had left when I got together with Mimi. I had cruelly severed all ties with Cassie and thrown away everything of hers to demonstrate my determination to break up with her. But I regretted it. This remorse made me pour cold liquor into my stomach day after day, relying on alcohol to numb myself. I lost the girl who loved me most. Even in her dying moments, she kept shouting for me to leave quickly. Since then, the cemetery has become my favorite place to visit. 1 month after Casey's death, when I appeared at the cemetery, as usual, there was a simple bouquet of yellow chrysanthemums and a watch placed there. I picked up the watch in confusion. It was a Rolex exquisitely crafted, undoubtedly genuine, and clearly worth a fortune. I seized the opportunity and quickly interjected, "If you've got the guts, go ahead and kill the hostage now." I hadn't even made a move against him yet, and here he was coming to me first. Even if it meant mutual destruction, I was determined to bring down the Sue family's business. From then on, no matter what business Julian Corporation pursued, I de-snatch it away at prices far below market value. Even at a loss, we must snatch the business partner from his grasp. The decline of the Sue and Shin families was astonishingly rapid. Within just 3 years, both commercial empires crumbled. Soon I heard the news that Julian had jumped into the sea. When they fished him out, his body was so waterlogged it was unrecognizable. The nerves that had been tense for so many years finally relaxed in that instant. I let out a long sigh and drained the last drop of liquor from the bottle in my hand. Then the world spun wildly. As I collapsed, I thought I saw a vivid Kathy appear beside me and crouch down. I desperately tried to reach for her, only to hear her ask with a sweet smile, "Hello, do you know Julian? I'm his childhood friend Catherine." My hand fell limply. No more sound came. The end.